Ian and all the crew over there as well. So he's with them for a while. He's with them for a good while, I hope. But he was in great form yesterday. Now, though, I was in town, as I said to you. The one thing we did over Christmas was we walked quite a bit. And we were in out of town and walked the canals and walked up and down Shop Street and up and down Keith Street, and we stopped and we had a cup of coffee here, or we had a bottle of water there, and nothing stronger. Oh, no smarty pants out there. And it was just lovely just to see. But even on Bank Holiday Monday, we were in town last Monday for a walk. I couldn't believe the amount of people that were there. So a man who might be able to shed some light on this is Kenny Deery, who's Chief Executive of Galway Chamber, and he joins you on the line today. Kenny, Happy New Year to you, and I hope you had a good Christmas and New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Keith, as well, and I certainly did.
Good. Now, figures-wise, there seemed to be a huge amount of footfall, and even the shops were extremely busy over the period.
To be fair, we're delighted. There was a great energy around the city in the weeks leading into Christmas. I think the city looked magical. The right decisions were made. Going back to meetings, you'll remember going back some months ago around looking at energy, etc. Some towns scaled down their plans for how they presented their cities. Thankfully, from a Galway point of view, a big investment was made into how the city would look. Christmas lighting, public realm, the Air Square and how it looked. And to be honest, I think that was a huge contributor, as well as many of the businesses putting best foot forward. And I think doing competitive pricing. There were a lot of campaigns promoting the city in the lead into it, with support from City Council, Fulch Ireland and others. I think it's no one thing. It's a lot of combined effort from many partners playing together that really brought a buzz and an energy to the city. And I think if you look at it, the weather could have put a wobble in that, because we had 1 week where things were tricky and it put a lot of pressure on the other weeks in the month of December. But broadly speaking, from talking to our members in tourism and hospitality, they were very happy. Christmas parties were very much back. Lots of dinners, lots of team gatherings that couldn't happen in the previous 2 years. I think many of the hotels, Keith, were seeing a bounce in wedding trade. There were some weeks where it was back to back with weddings, because remember, a lot of those special type of celebrations were minimised or cancelled and deferred through COVID as well. So that also, that effort of playing catch up. I was part of a few of them myself, not a central part, but an attendee at quite a few of them. And 3 of those were in the city. And again, it was great to see that energy. And each wedding brings, 200-300 people to the city, and they're staying, they're overnighting. So that all, I think, has had a really positive impact. And if we look at footfall, the footfall figures, and I don't have to find ones for the last week or so yet, but the footfall that we were getting into mid-December was back to 2019 levels, which is what we wanted to see.
Which is great news, so it is, Kenny. And I mean, you spoke about it, and I said it yesterday. I think we have the most magical city in the world. We really do, and it's gorgeous. I think Galway City Council got to be complimented. They paid for the full erection of lighting this year. Isn't that correct? They took the hit on that.
They took, and what you have though, so you have the funding of the lighting, which is one piece, and it's quite substantial, without even buying any new lighting infrastructure, just the health and safety rules that have to be followed in the erection of lighting street by street. And also then you have the different business groups and clusters really adding to it with their own additional lighting, and also helping facilitate and support the central put-up. So honestly, the story, I think, of Galway this year, certainly within the business community, has been one very much a partnership, working together, and how can we collectively present the city in the best way possible, so that the user experience, i.e. those from around the city who want to come into town and enjoy town, and some of those use public transport, some of those drove, but also then those from around the region, trying to attract them to Galway as opposed to anywhere else. And to be fair, it has certainly worked. And I think one of the interesting bits, Keith, is the social media coverage will let you know fairly quickly if things are going well or otherwise. And there was really an awful lot of positive social media coverage. And I remember tweeting myself, I want to say 2 evenings before Christmas, the scenes from Shop Street and kind of Main Guard Street. And it was just a buzzing atmosphere. You had street performers, you had lots of people moving around, and it looked great. And normally you'd post and there'd be it could go anyway. And there was just lots of people saying, well done, town is really great. There were 2 or 3 detractors, as you'd normally expect, but we'd be disappointed if they didn't appear on Twitter at this stage. So overall, I think as we reflect, it has been a strong performance. And for retail, we really hope that the next 2 to 3 weeks that there's a strong after Christmas sales performance, because I think many of the retailers, if we look at the challenge they've had, it's quite unique. They've had 2 to 3 years. Like food retail has performed exceptionally strong. They, without a doubt, they seem very content, and that's really excellent in a position where inflation has gone up, prices have gone up, but yet consumers were willing to pay, and that's been excellent. I think, let's say, clothing retailers or the more bespoke type of retail have really had a challenged 3-year cycle, because normally they'd build up stock and you'd have winter spring collections and you'd have summer winter collections and you'd have summer autumn collections, and all those mothballed, and people were carrying lots of stock. So I really hope that over the next couple of weeks, people take the opportunity to use their vouchers, the new government voucher scheme, and the increase to €1,000 as distinct from 500. Lots of companies took advantage of that as a way to remunerate their employees. So I'd encourage those to really shop local, come in. There are wonderful sales, there are wonderful bargains on offer right across our retailers in the city. And that'll really give them the support that they need to keep cash flow going over the next few months until we get into the more typical domestic tourism and also international tourism season.
I spoke to one trader indeed who would be in the clothing industry, and they were absolutely thrilled and excited with the amount of footfall and people coming in and actually physically touching the garment and buying the garment, trying on the garment and then going home. But made the point that during COVID they were basically a dressing room for major brands, whereas now people are coming in and physically buying, which is nice to hear.
It's nice to hear. And listen, I think this is down to the personal circumstances, but many shoppers were challenged during COVID. So for those who are skinny malinks is the wrong word to nearly use, but sizes are really personal to individuals with clothes. And I certainly would never be able to buy a suit or a pair of trousers or even a t-shirt without somehow trying a variation of it on, because those of us that aren't kind of 12 stone and a certain waistline, you're not going to buy stuff because if you can't try it on, you don't know will it fit or not. And I think that has been a huge challenge. And there's pent up appetite for people who haven't rotated wardrobes, and particularly if they're in business, they're coming back into the office now, because remember, people didn't necessarily need wardrobes. I'd hate to be a tie manufacturer coming out of the COVID scenario, because ties, you're in the minority if you wear a tie at a meeting now as opposed to otherwise. And people didn't necessarily need to dress up, whereby now with a return to more normalised work, and I know it's very scattered and there's disparate ideas, some people are going remote, but lots of companies are beginning bit by bit to bring people back. Investments are going to be made into wardrobes. They have to freshen up the outfits, and we have a fantastic array of retailers in Galway who at the moment are offering great sales, great promotions, with the hope that they'll move on their stock so that they can then restock. And they've already made their acquisitions into the spring summer collections, but it'll just make sure the sustainability of our local retail sector. So I definitely would encourage people to get out and embrace the fact that, change is coming again, and more, I think, will be coming into the offices in our city. And that's good, because that's necessary for footfall around your restaurants, your cafes, your lunchtime trade, etc. So we would welcome it, broadly speaking.
So it's been a very positive Christmas. I mean, the elephant in the room here is the whole traffic situation, and I'm actually fed up. And I met a few people from Dublin that I would have known on the streets of Galway and elsewhere. I was out in Connemara, and I met some people there, and they were talking about traffic. So it is the elephant in the room, but we have a fantastic city and we have a fantastic county. And I was in Ballinasloe over the Christmas, and it's just a period, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I was in Clifton. I was in Ballyconneely just walking the beach. We just have a wonderful city and county, but we have to try and get over this elephant of traffic and getting in and getting out and getting through Galway.
I think there are a number of parts to it. And listen, you are right in terms of the traffic. And there's been, I won't say no stronger an advocate, but we have been banging the drum trying to help deliver solutions. I think, if you look at Galway, and again, the uniqueness of us, and those in Dublin will know what traffic is like, because theirs is far worse. I've spent quite a bit of time in Dublin over the last few weeks at a number of events, and getting a taxi from Santry into town, 45, 50 euro, sitting, looking at the same set of lights 3-4 times. We're not at that level, but it's a different type of city. I think if we look at Galway, it's medieval city on the water. That's beautiful, and that's part of the magic of it. Imagine lit up for Christmas, etc. But that means under the environmental legislation that we have, there's a limited set of things we can deliver and do. There are plans in place, as we know. And ironically, when I talked to Twitter and I talked to one or two of the groups who had negative comments to say, it will be those who will be objectors to and I'm long enough around now to figure out who they are, who are objectors to some of the traffic solutions that we have in play, but yet they're also giving out on a positive story, but they don't have a solution. I think one of the key things we have to do is, as a Galway, and certainly one of my ambitions with the Chamber of Commerce and with our Transport Committee, we're having a meeting this Friday, first meeting of the new year. It's focused on transport and it's focused on what the initiatives and campaigns are that we can try and push forward and support, because so many of our proposals and solutions for the city are caught up in various stages of the statutory process, all of them attracting objections or at least observations in a non-supportive way.
Yeah.
And I think if there's one rallying call that I can do, Keith, many people sit passively by and say, oh God, that looks like a wonderful idea, but they don't kind of publicly come out and say that. The detractor will be the loudest voice in the room, and the promoters aren't necessarily getting the support that they need sometimes. So what I would love to see is a flow of positive action towards supporting projects, that the only voice isn't the detractor, because in the end they've become so good at detracting, is they'll be the loudest voice in the room as well. And that's why we really need to positively support some of these projects to get them moving. I think interestingly, if we look at, let's say, and to be fair to the car parks, I was in the Corrib Centre one evening at the risk of calling one out, but things were slow getting out of it. I didn't add to it because I'd lost my own parking ticket. But to be fair, they were very solution focused. There were 3 to 4 guys, the barriers were up, they were trying to filter traffic out into the street. And in essence, as you know, coming out of there are 2 ways you can go. Those heading down towards the Headford Road, there was congestion. And I think that's where we have to be more proactive with flow of traffic light management. That's maybe better than what we've had to date. But once I got out and headed down around Foster Street, I came across Eyre Square through town and there wasn't an issue. I moved as if it was a Sunday afternoon. So I think it's working with City Council to identify where the absolute black spots are and what are the practical solutions we can put in play, so that if you have 2 weeks before Christmas and we know there's going to be congestion, what can we do to try and alleviate that? So that has to be adequately resourced and focused on, so that experience is better. I know from talking to Bus Éireann, they were very happy. Numbers were exceptionally strong on the main bus routes in and out through the city. And I think we're seeing some routes in Galway that's going to get more investment into the new year, because occupancy or passenger numbers is so strong on those buses, is the need to increase the frequency. Again, the challenge for the buses is we've only a certain amount of bus carriageway, and there are 2 proposals, the Dublin Road scheme and the Cross City scheme, that are at various stages of the planning process. And I think we really need to get behind those, particularly the Cross City scheme, the Cross City scheme, because what that will be, and without a doubt, there will be challenges. There'll be challenges within the business community. I've engaged with some of the businesses, particularly if you're talking along Eglinton Street, spaces like that, where ordinary car traffic will be lost and parking will be lost. And that's a challenge once you're talking to that. But we have to look at the city from a helicopter perspective, and how can we make things better? Mm-hmm. And I think that scheme running from the hospital to the G will be transformative in terms of the flow of the city centre, more pedestrianisation, more cycle-friendly routes and dedicated cycleways and shared cycleways. And I know some in the cycling community will say they don't want to share with a bus. At the moment, they're sharing with everything else that's on the road. If we can get to a point of some system of shared pathways, bus, cycle and pedestrians, wouldn't that be a far better scenario and a more European scenario than we have at the moment? So I think there's a mindset piece that we, as the city people, those living in the city and those commuting to and from the city, have to more actively get behind schemes that are for the benefit of the city into the future, as opposed to blocking them.
I was in that Corrib shopping centre over Christmas, and like that, as I was going into the shopping centre, I said to one of the traffic attendants, is it safe to go in? And he said, yeah, but will you stop giving out about us on the radio? It's not our fault. So anyway, I went in and I took my I said, I'm not giving out. I said, we're just taking calls. So I didn't have parking. I got a parking space and I did what I had to do, which I think was a haircut. And I came back and I met him coming out. And what he said to me was, and I verified it independently, so where you said that they were helping cars to get out and getting down towards one way and going the other way, so heading down towards Woodkey. But apparently the Gardaí have said on more than one occasion that they would arrest them and bring them down to the guard station, that what they're doing is illegal. They cannot direct traffic. They're not empowered to direct traffic and they shouldn't be doing it. So it's,
and that's these are the pinch points that we need to deal with and tackle. And I'm sure there's a whole lot of reasons behind it with insurance like me whatever talking. Else.
Yeah, all they're trying to do is stop fellas like me giving out about it. And they were trying to get people out and turn them left if they're going down towards Wood Quay, right if they're going down towards Park House or Foster's, that general area. They were trying to help people. And yet the Gardaí say, if you do that again, I'll pick you up and bring you down to Mill Street. There has to be a little bit of common sense.
There has to be a more solution-focused way of working together at the risk of falling on the wrong side of An Garda Síochána. And I know they have exceptionally limited resources as well, so you would think this would be a helpful solution as opposed to something else. But I'm sure there's some bit enshrined in law that says X, Y, and Z, but we need to get beyond that. I think, for the city, it's interesting. Before Christmas, there were some study trips on other European cities in terms of how they've progressed and how they've changed. And one of the big acceptances is, laws and legislation is there. It's important. It's to be interpreted, but delivery is more important. And sometimes you do have to compromise. And I think that's a perfect example where we as a collective working together, not everything is 100% black and white.
All right, Kenny Deery, thank you indeed for joining us, Chief Executive Galway Chamber. Do you agree or disagree? You can do so to our comment line 086 38 33 553.
Galway Talks, in association with